Teacher Van. For today's video, I'll be sharing with you the different types of instructional materials that I have learned from my EDENG 214 subject, or commonly known as the Language Learning Materials and Development subject. It is a major subject that I am taking as of the moment. In this subject, we have learned a lot of instructional materials that will help us as future educators. So, let us delve deeper into each one of them.
So we have here a graphic instructional material. This is an example of a radial diagram wherein we have the core element at the center. We have the fallacious statements. Its sub-elements are hypothesis, contrary to fact, poisoning the well, appeal to sympathy, and contradictory premises or logical paradox. This is the easiest and simplest way of presenting the lesson to the students. Though it is simple, the impact is big because through this, the students can easily understand what fallacious statements are. The next type of instructional material that I have here is an example of a visual material. In here, I made a tar papel wherein I used pictures. This will be used in the evaluation part because this is actually an exercise in order for me to know if my students have learned something. Through these pictures, my students will easily identify what kind of fallacy is evident in the following statements.
First, we have the graphic instructional material wherein I specifically used a radial diagram. So it was pretty simple and fun to make because you only need a core element and sub-elements on the sides. So far, it was the easiest thing I did. As for the visual instructional materials, I had fun looking for pictures online because there are plenty of pictures online, but it is important to note that as a future educator, you must pick the best picture, something that is presentable for your students and that best suits your lesson or any content that you want to impart to them. So we have here an example of a printed instructional material, specifically a handout. This improves the language learning and instruction because students can recall their lessons through this. So it is a 2-page handout. In making the printed instructional materials, specifically the handouts, I actually had fun making it because as a student myself, I have been doing it for several years, especially right before exams. So it was something that I really looked forward to in making.
So we have here an example of a computer-aided instructional material, specifically a game that I made on WordWall. So this is about the ad hominem policies. It is a matchup game wherein we need to drag and drop each keyword next to its definition. So let's take a look. So this is how it looks like. So you need to guess the correct answer and choose from here. Then you will drop it to its designated question. This improves the language instruction because it keeps students engaged and teachers can effectively present their lesson in a very engaging way. So there are many other ways of being creative. It's not just about WordWall. There are many other platforms where you can be more creative in making games for your students, which can serve as exercises or quizzes as well.
As for the computer-aided instructional materials, I actually had fun making it because I created a game on WordWall. It's an online platform where you can create a lot of games for the students. I believe that computers really helps us. It provides us a variety of ways of presenting our lesson or topic to the students. I also believe that creating a game on Word Wall or any other platform can help build the 21st century skills and new literacies that the students need, knowing that we have a diverse generation of students today.
Next, we have the audio type of instructional material. In here, I recorded the lesson about the different types of ad hominem fallacy for English grade 10 fourth quarter. These can improve the language learning and instruction because teachers can easily deliver information. It is convenient to use with or without electricity, and it is relatively inexpensive. So let's listen for a few minutes. Good day, class. Welcome to English grade 10 fourth quarter. This is your teacher Van, and for today's discussion, we are going to discuss about the different types of ad hominem fallacy. But before we start, let us first define the meaning of ad hominem. So ad hominem is a Latin term that means argument against a person. It is a general category of logical fallacy mostly used in public speaking to malign somebody or something in order to convince the audience. So when we are campaigning for or advocating something, we must be aware of the things that we say. Because even if our goal is to persuade our audience to believe us, we should not disrespect anybody just to reach our goal. However, at times we may not be aware that we are showing discourtesy and disrespect when giving a speech.
In making the audio instructional material, it was honestly pretty challenging because my voice needs to be clear and engaging throughout the recorded video.
Next, we have the projected instructional material, specifically the PowerPoint presentation. So this will improve the language instruction because students can see their lesson through the PowerPoint presentation using, of course, a projector. So it's one way of engaging students as well and keeping their interest throughout the teaching and learning process. So let's take a look on what I made.
Although I made a lot of projected instructional materials, specifically the PowerPoint presentation throughout my student life, I still find it very enjoyable to make.
So we have here a 3D instructional material, specifically a puppet. The puppet is made of a printed cutout of Ebenezer Scrooge. It is pasted on an illustration board to keep it sturdy. Also, it is tacked on a stick and operated by the moving sticks. This can improve the language instruction because it makes the characters of a particular story realistic.
Making the 3D instructional material, specifically the puppet, was the most challenging and difficult task I've made of all the instructional materials. That is because the image of Ebenezer Scrooge was pasted on an illustration board because I wanted it to be sturdy. However, I really had a hard time cutting it all throughout because I need to be very careful not to distort the image. Regardless of that, puppetry truly engages the students throughout the teaching and learning process because it makes the characters of a particular story or any content more realistic, and that is important. The representation of the characters allows the students to grasp the necessary knowledge and skills that they need to better understand the lesson that you want to impart to them.
Lastly, we have the display instructional materials, specifically the bulletin board. So just imagine that this is big because this is actually made in a digital platform only. So this improves the language instruction because it is a very informative way of presenting the lesson. You can put it on the corridors or in the classrooms as well.
Lastly, I find the display instructional material, specifically the bulletin board, very informative. So that's it for our video. We have learned a lot of instructional materials. We have the graphic, the visual, the printed, the computer aided, the audio, the projected, the 3D, and lastly, the display instructional material. All in all, I can say that as a future educator, it is profoundly important that we are adept in making these instructional materials. Instructional materials enhances the quality of our lesson and it engages our students throughout the teaching and learning process, where meaningful activities takes place and, more importantly, it makes learning more permanent. So that's it for our video. I hope you learned something for today's video. See you soon. Take care. God bless and bye.